want to replace Dwayne Burns with a rubber stamp, and they've got one in Helen Kerwin. Kerwin has pledged to support this voucher scheme if elected, but we can't let that happen. Dwayne Burns' top priority is border security. He's stopped taxpayer-funded handouts to illegal aliens, and he's endorsed by every law enforcement association in Texas. Political ad paid for by the Dwayne Burns campaign.
Here's important new information from the Diabetes Solution Center for you, a family member, or a loved one suffering with diabetes. If you have lost your provider, or if you need a provider for diabetic supplies, you may qualify to receive your diabetic testing supplies now with little or no out-of-pocket cost, regardless of your age. All you need is Medicare or private insurance to be potentially eligible. Call the Diabetes Solution Center right now for details. Just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no-obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Nowhere but Texas. That's where I'll be. Get home's the answer to all my dreams. I know one thing. God calls me. Nowhere but Texas is where I'll be.
We're ready to do another one. You ready?
Can't wait, Mayor.
Oh, man. Everybody, welcome to the County Pulse out there. This is Mayor Chris Fletcher, and I got somebody special with us today. We got a judge here, and Judge Chris Boedeker with the county. Thanks for being here, bud.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the invitation.
We've had a good run here recently. We've gotten a lot of stuff done. So anytime you want to jump in, you can.
Well, how much time do we have? I don't know if an hour is enough to talk about all the things going on in Johnson County.
I know. I want to start out like I always start the shows out. Number one, I want to thank Alpha Omega Pest Control. Tim Davis has helped pay for this thing, and I really appreciate him. And he's got a great business. Been here a long time. One of the biggest hearts you'll ever see. He helps a lot of people. He doesn't. I don't know if he does it as much as he used to. Most of the time he's with those grandkids, but that's okay.
That's
June Bud and Cowboy keeps him busy. They're trying to learn how to raise cattle. So, thank you, Tim. Appreciate you, buddy.
I know. I obviously can't endorse companies and don't send people to businesses, but I will say every community event I go to, just about he's there.
Every one of them. I mean, he helps at Harvest House, CT 100, all of these guys. He's there to help. So, got a great personality too. No, and he's married to a good woman. Has to put up with him some.
That helps.
So here we go. I knew you when you was a DA at Johnson County when you was doing that gig. Before that, tell me how you got. Are you a local kid? Are you Cleveland kid?
Yes, absolutely. My wife and I were both born and raised in Cleveland. Cleveland High School graduates.
Same year?
No, I'm a couple of years older than her.
Okay.
I was, I think, 3 grades ahead of her. We did not know each other in high school, but we are both Cleveland locals. I think our parents knew each other. You know, it's a small town, small county. After high school, I went off to Baylor and came right back to Cleburne. I worked at a small firm, and then I was in the county attorney's office as a prosecutor for the county for about 8 years before I ran for office.
What kind of, when in the private sector, what kind of law did you have there?
We specialized in whatever walked through the door. So, yeah, divorces, child protective, anything but criminal. I ironically didn't touch those cases until I came on board with the county.
Okay, so you became a prosecutor. A lot of stuff going on, just really an amazing situation. I've been going to the Robin Waddell's
Yes, sir.
murder trial here with Jerry Elder, and that's been kind of really eye-opening, what they had to do to cross the T's and dot the I's, and really impressed with the judge.
Yes. Yeah, Judge Gabriel is fantastic. Obviously not going to comment on that case, but I know capital murder cases in general they're complicated. They're big. We had one in Johnson County about 10 years ago. Solis was his name, and it's a production. They had to bring in panel after panel of jurors to pick a juror. It took several months to pick a jury. It was complicated. They got their jury, they got their verdict, and went through that trial. And in the course of that, the courthouse actually updated their security protocols because of it, because of media attention and public perception. And in that case, 10 years ago, particularly a defendant that wanted to make himself heard. He was sometimes troublesome, and they updated. That's when we introduced fingerprint scanners and some of the other biometric security in the courthouse was due to that case.
What was the end result of that? What was the verdict?
He was convicted of capital murder, and I believe he was sentenced to death.
Is he still alive?
I don't know that.
It takes so long to implement that. I don't understand. I know there's some ethics and make sure, but that just, you get the death sentence and then you live another 20 years. That's a horrible life
Yes, I don't envy anybody on either side of those cases. They're complicated, and they inevitably lead to appeals. And lots of law schools have innocence projects where they go around looking for death penalty cases to investigate further and work on. It's not something I was ever involved on in law school, but a lot of students are. It's kind of how you cut your teeth on complicated cases, and you have third-year law students working on death penalty cases after the fact.
So when I owned Texas Overhead Door, we did a counter shutter at the federal prison out by Lockheed.
Okay.
And we were doing the punch list. The job was over. No prisoners were there. I went out there late on a Friday to do a little tweaking on the door, and the superintendent there, we become pretty good friends. He said, "I want you to do something." And this was one big round room, and the center tower could see every door, every walkway, everything. And there was 2 stories on this. First story, he said, "I want you to stand right here and close your eyes." And I knew this guy. So I thought, okay, what are you fixing to do? He said, "No, just do it." And I stood there and closed my eyes, and he went over and closed one of those cell doors. That will put shivers up your spine.
Yes,
that is amazing what was going on. And
sound
then
of that metal lock.
Oh my gosh, it was hard. It was horrible. But then we went down he was telling her about this was a federal prison, and they were bringing this inmate from Tennessee to stay there. And she was bad, like 6'4", mean. She was coming in there, and she was showing the cell that this woman would spend the rest of her life in, except for about 15 minutes a week, where she went into this square room that was open top. The walls were 3 foot tall, 3 layers of razor wire on top, and she was not allowed to have anything. She wasn't, not a ball, not a basketball, not jump rope, nothing. That was her life.
Wow. And
I've heard that a lot of these prisoners that's to this point would rather have the death sentence instead of life. So I'm just, I don't want to spend my life like that.
No,
so.
Absolutely not. I'll steal a somewhat funny story from my wife. She's also an attorney, and she does some criminal defense. She represented a defendant who was charged with escaping from jail in another county, not our jail here. But he had escaped, and he was facing a long time in prison, and she put him on the stand and to testify. He pled guilty, and they found him outside the jail. It's pretty cut and dry. But he went to the jury for sentencing, and they had a conversation, and she asked him, "Why'd you escape?" And he said, "I'm facing prison time, and I wanted to go out and stand in the sunshine one more time." And you feel a little bit bad for him. I mean, he took the wrong path.
Surely you got over that very quickly.
I believe he's still in somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't let him go with that story.
Okay. I talked to Tim Good, the new DA. He'll take over in January, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to him, and he's really wanting the child protection to go after those guys. And I asked him, he was a defense attorney in Tarrant. And I said, you want to go after these guys, but did you ever have to defend those guys? He said, yeah, that was a tough job. You know, to ask the question, his client was asked the question, well, what if that person doesn't show up? And he set them straight real quick. Says, you do not touch them. You do not talk to them, nothing. So yeah, that's a tough gig.
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of respect for my wife. She does that. I have never done that. And she's got to, separate work from home and separate maybe you don't like that client, but they deserve a fair defense. They get a fair shot at things.
I want to put you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I heard this story secondhand, and I asked you about it, and you verified it. You had a juvenile when you was working at the county that came up in front of you, and you showed him leniency a couple of times, I believe.
I know the story you're talking about. That is true. I will repeat it. I don't repeat it often, so I don't have it polished.
You're going to repeat it today because it's a good story. Okay.
It was, of all places, in the county attorney's office, we split duties, and I ended up, one of my duties I had the whole time I was there. I was the traffic prosecutor. So I went to the JP courts, and I enjoyed it. I always looked at it as an opportunity to work with people that are not typically involved in the criminal justice system. So everybody gets speeding tickets. You can be the mayor and get a speeding ticket, or you can be a hardened felon.
I got a ticket in Joshua the second week coming back from a Railroaders game, and it was his guy's first night in a cruiser. So anyway,
well, see, everybody gets tickets. You got a speeding ticket. You never been charged with a felony. You're not a criminal. You're a regular person. And for most of us out there, we don't interact with the criminal justice system unless it's a ticket. And to me, that means that traffic prosecutors are sometimes ambassadors for the criminal justice system. If you go in and you feel like you're getting railroaded by the traffic prosecutor, or you feel like they're rude or they're not helpful, you're going to think that applies to all the cases from speeding tickets to capital murders. And so I was always very passionate about that. I kept those 4 courts that I wanted to go to, and I did never try to hand those off to anybody else as new prosecutor.
So this was in Cleburne.
This was in Johnson County. Yes. So I was the prosecutor here. There's the sub courthouse here in Burleson, the one in Alvarado, and then both of them in Cleburne. I did all 4 of those courts.
Okay.
I ended up running into this young man. He was older teenager, still in high school, on a couple of different cases. And they were all, now that I'm not there, I can say this, they're all piddly cases. They were not attending school, I think possession of cigarettes, underage, the kind of things that kids get charged with and they move on from. But this kid had a serious drug problem. He was, the first time I met him, he was there on a truancy case. He came in with his mom, and he had sores on his face. He was scratching at his skin. He was clearly currently under the influence of methamphetamine.
Single parent?
Yes. Yeah, I think Dad had some issues with the law and with some substances in the past as well. So he was following in some unfortunate footsteps. For that time, I talked to the kid for a little while, and I told him I wasn't doing anything with somebody that was currently on drugs. You're not going to come pay a ticket or sign anything while I think you're under the influence. And so I sent him home and reset him about 30 days and told him to dry out. He came back the next time, I think without his mom, and we talked again. We ended up, I don't want to say we developed a relationship. We never spoke outside of the courthouse. I didn't know him well, but I talked to him. And every time I started resetting his case instead of letting him come in and pay a fine. And we'd set his case at the end of the docket. I'd set aside about an hour of my time to have a conversation with him, ask him how he was doing. And we'd push it out 6 or 8 weeks at a time. He'd come in 3 or 4 times on that case. Every time I'd ask him, are you using drugs today? When's the last time you used? What are you using now? And just that little bit of accountability, he kept promising me he was going to get clean. And I don't know why I took a little pity on him at the beginning, but really did care about this kid. And we got his case resolved. He stayed clean for a little while, and I dismissed that ticket. A year later, he got a ticket in a different court, and I'm the prosecutor there because I was the prosecutor in all of the traffic courts. And it was, I think that was the possession of tobacco. So he's 17 or so at this time, not allowed to be in possession of a cigarette. And we have those same conversations. And
how do you, when a possession of a cigarette, is this at school where you got caught, or how did he get caught? I mean,
probably so. I don't remember the details.
I can't see a police officer pulling him over because he's got a Marlboro in his mouth.
That's usually how it worked. Yeah, the SRO wrote scratch out a ticket for possession of. Nowadays, it's all vape pens. Back then, it was cigarettes and e-cigarettes. But yeah, he got referred over. So we had these conversations, and it was positive. We kept talking. I kept setting him for these meetings at the end of the docket, get everybody else cleared out. We'd sit down. He brought in his grandmother that he was living with at the time. I think a couple of times he brought in his girlfriend that he thought was going to help set him straight. And we talked about what it means to be a grown up, that you got to be straight. You can't be using drugs. You can't be using substances. You can't be stealing. You can't be breaking the law if you're going to have a future that's different than what you've seen laid out in front of you. The last time I talked to him, probably about 2 years after I met him, he was engaged to his girlfriend. I think she was pregnant, and they were both about 18, 19. But he had a line on a job and a place to live. He had an uncle out of state, maybe Colorado, that was going to put him to work, give him a place to live, and give him a place where he wouldn't have access to drugs. And he moved off. And that was the last I heard of him until during the campaign. On election day, one of the sites, my parents were out holding signs saying, "Vote for Chris Boedeker." And a woman that I later found out is this kid's grandmother came up to them and asked how they knew me, why they were holding signs. And they explained they're my parents. And she handed them a letter and told them thank you, and to tell me that I had saved their grandson's life, and that I was apparently the only adult male that had ever given him any kind of guidance on how to be a grown-up. And he was clean. He had been clean since the last time we talked. He was working. He had a baby, and the baby was still in his care, not in CPS care. That was, it's hard to talk about without getting a little bit emotional.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the most impactful things that I've done in my life, and it was something that I never would have thought of. It was just a series of conversations with somebody trying to help out a kid that was in trouble. But that is something I will absolutely carry with me the rest of my life.
See, and you said a male role model, something there. And all of you guys out there, you do not know when it comes out of your mouth and a kid's listening, you got the opportunity to make it sound good or to make it sound bad. And we kind of, our language nowadays has gotten really, really bad. And, you know, these kids are listening to it, and it's social media. Where do you stand? Where do you stand on social media? This is totally off script. I didn't even think about this.
No, I absolutely hate social media. I wish we could do away with it. Doesn't seem likely to happen. So
TikTok, you think that'll go away?
Oh, there's too much money in it for it to go away all the way, right?
I bet you the Chinese has already got someone willing to buy it in the United States.
Absolutely. I mean,
and they'll still be there.
Every company that's based in a foreign country has their American subsidiary that owns their holdings. You know, you have Toyota of America is an enormous corporation. It's based in America and owned by Toyota of Japan. We're going to see something similar. Some friendly owner will hold it. Nobody's going to lose out on the ad revenue. And I don't know, maybe that makes me cynical, but
no, yeah, that's just common sense. I mean, there's all what kind of ways you get around anything you want to put out there.
Sure. Well, and I'll add social media. I think it's where people get their news. It's where people get their information right now. And that's a struggle for local government. We tend to be more conservative with how we approach people, with how we communicate with people. And we've got to do a better job of embracing new formats. We're on one right now, and I commend you for that, Mayor, that this would have been unheard of a few years ago. And here you are giving community updates regularly. And this will be, I'm sure, on social media. I think we have to meet people where they are. And this is a good step. I think the county over the next few years, we've got to figure out how to engage better with social media. We've got 2 departments, or an elected official and a department, that do a really good job of that. Sheriff's office has a Facebook presence that.
Oh, Adam's knocking it out of the park.
He
isn't
is.
He is doing a great job.
They brought back the old time police blotter, and now you can see where are the deputies going, what are they doing, how are your tax dollars making Johnson County safer, and it's just right there. And it's the kind of things you would have found in the newspaper when I was a kid. You'd pull up the newspaper, and here's the list of all the magistrations, and here's all the arrests. And we don't see that anymore.
I know. I want to talk to you more off air about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to twist you on that.
Sure. The other one is Jamie Moore, our emergency management director. He does a great job of keeping up with usually storms, storm events, natural disasters, and trying to keep people informed. So he'll go a couple of months without making a post, and then this time of year, you'll have a flurry of Facebook posts with charts and graphs and maps all through the night. And they've actually got a really cool program. I'm going to plug that, and then we'll move on to anything else you want to talk about. But they have worked with our GIS, our computer folks in the IT department, to create an interactive map anytime there's a disaster, where citizens out in the county can go to the Facebook page, they can click on it, they can upload their pictures and create a storm path that shows the damage that was created. And it's such real-time information that they've been reached out to by the federal government, by news sources. How did y'all make this map? How did you do it so quickly? And how did you know the path of the tornado and have damage pictures from all the places that were damaged? And the answer is, we outsourced it. We crowdsourced it. We sent it out to everybody on Facebook and said, if you have damage, upload your pictures here. And it builds a real-time map of where there was storm damage.
Is that active already?
That is it. Yes, it's active already. They've used it the last year or two, maybe before that. And time there's a storm, it's something that Jamie public and tell them how that works. And they map so they know where the damage was.
So how do you have to screen because I got a picture. All these pictures aren't going to be about storm damage. Do you have to get someone go through those and this is legitimate? The doghouse fell over. You don't put that on there, do you?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that whatever gets uploaded to there is real live information. And so it's not going to be the final word for, insurance adjusters are not going to rely on pictures that were uploaded to our website. But it is a way of gathering that information as quickly as is possible. So
does the screening, is that done in-house or is that?
Yes. All of that goes through Jamie Moore and through our IT department.
That's a lot of work.
He's a hardworking guy. He's also our new county-wide fire marshal. He is just recently, we started that process in October. He just recently received a certification from TCOL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, to be a new law enforcement agency in the county. So we now have a fire marshal, and we're very excited about that.
Well, you're making things happen, Slick. I'm proud of you.
I think good governance is all about those quiet background base hits. You just have to have one after another after another. We play small ball at the county, I think, and I think that's an effective way to over time make big differences in people's lives.
A lot on your plate. I want to touch base on the task force.
Okay.
And Larry Sparks and his bunch, and how Burleson is I'm proud of Chief Cordell and how he supports that.
Yes, sir.
Do you think we have a problem with meth in our county?
Absolutely. Yeah, bar none. We have had a drug problem for a very long time in this county that predates any of us. When my time as a prosecutor, about half of my time was spent as a CPS prosecutor. And I can tell you, by and large, the cases that actually go to court in Child Protective Services in Johnson County are severe. They typically involve drugs plus other items. And that most common drug of choice is methamphetamine. The number of children who test positive for methamphetamine in this county is heartbreaking.
What age?
Oh, every age. It's through exposure. It's not.
What's the youngest?
Newborn. I mean, we frequently had cases where a child is born and tested and has been exposed through their mother to methamphetamine. And then as soon as kids are able to crawl, those 6 to 18-month-year-olds that crawl around and stick everything in their mouth, well, that includes the meth pipe if you're not careful about where you leave it. Or methamphetamine.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I don't want to depress your listeners or get too much into the
No,
science,
I don't.
which I am not.
I don't know so much about getting them depressed, but getting them fired up. You know,
You should be.
We
should
don't
be
have
fired
the.
up.
This is what this show's about. You know, I know I go off script, which I don't have a script. So anyway, this is where people need to get fired up. They need to get mad about this problem.
Well, and that's one of the things, we talk about. I think there's a segment of our population that talks about drugs as a victimless crime. Who are we hurting by doing drugs? Well, you're hurting everybody around you. You're hurting the system. You're impacting taxpayers, and you're impacting children significantly. If you smoke methamphetamine inside of a house, meth is the kind of drug that sticks to the walls, that sticks to the carpet.
Ooh.
And so your little kid crawling through the room after you've smoked meth, it doesn't even have to be immediately after. They're going to pick it up on their hands. They're going to absorb it through their skin. We tested children of all ages, from, again, newborn through 12 or 13 is about when you stop testing kids, because then they might be doing it on their own, right? We don't want to blame the parents if the child really has, if a teenager has snuck off and done drugs. That's a different problem. But up to that age, newborn to 12-year-old, all of them, not all the children, but we've had at every age point kids testing positive for methamphetamines through exposure. And the levels that come back in their hair test is similar to that of a frequent methamphetamine user. I mean, they're getting exposed to as much as their parents
secondary
are.
Smoke.
Yes. Yeah, it's secondhand smoke, but meth.
That'll make you worry about buying a used car. Gosh.
Yeah, clean it well. And I'll commend our sheriff's office. They have, over the past several years, they started prosecuting those cases that you're a parent who exposes your child to methamphetamine, your 2 or 3-year-old test positive, you can expect a real potential that there's going to be an arrest warrant and you're going to go to jail over it.
We're getting down to the mid hours, but I'm pretty fired up over this. Larry Sparks, over 20 years running that group. I mean, he has been amazing on this thing, and some of the stories that he tells us. And I'm kind of going down the path. I rode with Larry to the Tarrant Crime Center, where they watched the cameras.
Yes,
that was pretty cool.
Big Brother Incorporated. That is an interesting place.
It really is. And I know there's guidelines on that, so everybody don't get your panties in a wad over this. But I sat there and watched this lady was sitting at her desk and had all the cameras up. And there is several different types of cameras. Burleson has just got the flock system. We have 4 cameras in place that is really doing their job, and it's on the main entrances coming in. But there's other cameras that's not in the flock system. They can access it, but it's not in the flock system. And this lady sat down, and there was this convenience store. And the funny thing about it was, I can't say the name of it or not. So anyway, it was a hangout, and people were sitting on the curb and everything. This camera was on a telephone pole at the top, across of an intersection. And she zoomed down on this guy that was sitting on the curb, down on his hand to see what was in it. And it was a pair of fingernail clippers. And you could see the pin in the fingernail clippers that held it together.
Wow.
And they're all over the place. They're needed. She showed accidents where a truck ran a light at a high speed and everything went everywhere. And it says, we can skim back over a time frame, pull it up. Oh my goodness, pull it up and see people stealing stuff off trucks. We can end that immediately. Okay. I'm running out of time here. 30 seconds. We're going to go to a break. We've kind of got where you've been. And in the second half, we're going to talk about where the county's going. So
that's exciting. I'm excited to talk about where we are, where we've been, where we're going. It's an exciting day to be in Johnson County.
I'm telling you, it's fun. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate you sponsoring all of us.
Yeah, nowhere but Texas.
Remember Helen Kerwin? As county commissioner, she raised the tax rate over 95%, increased taxes, utility rates, connection fees, and pushed to give the state even more taxing authority. Well, Helen Kerwin's back, handpicked by the Washington swamp to push a voucher scheme that takes funds away from our local schools and gives taxpayer-funded private school vouchers to illegal immigrants. They'd even go to the front of the line ahead of U.S. citizens and legal residents. It's the very same voucher scheme Dwayne Burns stopped last year before delivering the largest tax cut in Texas history, the strongest border security plan in America, and new laws to protect our kids at school and online. Dwayne Burns is the real conservative who puts our community first. He won't be bullied by powerful politicians or D.C. special interest groups because he doesn't work for them. He works for us. Political ad paid for by the Dwayne Burns campaign.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
The voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Nowhere but Texas. That's where
That's that Cleveland boy singing. Oh, no. Second half is coming up. There we go. First half went well. I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff you talked about, especially that kid. I know your heart's in the right place. Always has been.
I appreciate that.
This next half, a while back, you and I started getting people together. Okay, that's been,
Yes, sir.
I guess that's been over a year ago.
Over a year.
And the purpose of that was knowing that the state is saying we got 200,000 people coming, and individually we were going to have a mess. So we had a discussion about what do we need to do. Mayor Kane, Mayor Kimball, Mayor Wheat, Alvarado, all these guys kind of brainstorming. Of course, I've got Mayor Trevino from North Richmond Hills, Fletcher, Vandergriff, TRTC guys. We started learning how to do this. And we actually were able to change some of the bylaws of the Regional Transportation Committee so we could have city elected officials on that board. And that's come to bear. We're not going to take advantage of it right now because we've got Commissioner Bailey on there. He's doing a great job. But I do want to talk to you maybe the alternate coming from Burleson, if that's possible.
Okay.
Now, the reason I bring that up, the sheet that I saw, Johnson County's 193,000, Hood County's 19,000, the whole county. So we'll talk about that more. But I want to start out on what you did, and that's the master plan. We have never had a master plan in the county.
So I appreciate that. And this is the part that I don't really like talking about myself. I had, all right. Is that better?
You're
all right.
good.
There we
Yeah.
go. Now I can hear myself.
There you go.
Okay. I don't really like talking about myself. I've had fun chatting with you the last 30 minutes, but this is the part I'm passionate about, is where we are as Johnson County and where we're going. It's such an exciting time to be here, especially as somebody that grew up here in Johnson County, to see the difference between where we were in the 90s when I was a kid and where we are now, where we're heading.
I got people that knows when this was, when 174 was a 2-lane road.
Sure. 2 lanes and what,
Two
one
lanes.
stoplight. And
Yeah.
kind of through cattle country all through
Yeah.
here.
Betty Bailey tells a story about how she had a horse in her property and the city wanted her to get rid of it. Betty told them correctly not to, she wasn't going to say that. Yeah, there's some great stories in this town.
Oh, absolutely. So what you're talking about, the transportation master plan, I'm very excited about that. We are about halfway through that process. We retained a firm, Freeze and Nichols. They're the big engineers. They do lots of projects like this around here. They've actually done most of the counties that touch the Metroplex. They did their transportation thoroughfare plans. And so what that is, it's an opportunity for all of us in Johnson County to get together, decide what we want our roadway network to look like over the next 50 years.
Where it's interactive. It's not,
Yes.
It's not individual towns anymore.
Correct. And so the first thing that I talked to, and that we actually included in our request for proposal, an RFP process, that's how you buy things in the county. We publish in the newspaper and some other places, here's what we want. And what we published was, we want a master thoroughfare plan. We want it to account for future growth. We want it to be something that we can actually take action based on it, not put it on a shelf. And we want it to include the cities, not inside their city limits, but representatives from the cities, so that we can all be on the same page, literally on this document, about where we want to go and how we can pool our resources. That is going very well. The first step we took was hiring the consultant. The second step was appointing a thoroughfare steering committee, and that is about 11 representatives from all around the county. And we've got city staff members. I think there's a city staff member from Burleson, from Cleburne, from Alvarado.
Well, we have Victoria on there, Victoria Johnson,
Yes.
who is on the COG.
Yes.
That's a very important statement right there. And then we got Mayor Pro Tem Dan McClendon on there, who's construction and road knowledge. He knows all these roads around here. So there was on there. Who else was on? Can you remember names?
Oh, sure. We've got let's see. We've got the economic development.
The county?
No, from Alvarado.
Okay.
Mr. French is on that committee. We have from Keene, we have Anna Patterson,
Yes.
Dr. Patterson, who is the president of the university there. She is serving to represent that area. We have Miss Roden from Roden Realty, representing the Godley area. She and her family have long roots in Godley. And
But see, that's
business
small
there.
town.
Yes.
They need to be a part of this.
Yes, absolutely. They're small, but they're growing like wildfire. Percentage wise, they're growing faster than anybody. So we wanted to hear what are their concerns? What do they see being the problems over time? And I think we've got a really good group there together. We also have a couple of what we call ex officio members that are there because they hold a position somewhere else. That's Victor Vandergriff, who represents the Tarrant Regional Transportation Committee.
That's Tom Vandergriff's boy.
Yes.
Who just was amazing in Arlington.
Yes.
And he knows everybody.
He knows everybody and he knows how things work. He's been a real asset there. We've got the local TxDOT engineer from their offices in Keene, but he's Daniel Poole.
Yes.
He's participated in those, and it's very interactive. We've had a couple of meetings. The first meeting, everybody pulled out maps and got out their markers and drew where they thought we needed roadways, where there are problems, circle the problem intersections, draw your ideal roadway if you could add something to our network. And that's, that's the foundation that we're building on. We're hoping to adopt the plan by the end of this calendar year. So we've got some more time. The consultants are doing all the math and modeling, and they'll send us back something that's a lot closer to being done. We've also had public participation. There was a public meeting, and I was really proud of the way we were able to do this. And I appreciate your help, Mayor, in getting this done. But we had 2 public meetings open to everybody. We wanted input on the thoroughfare plan. And the first of those was in Burleson at City Hall.
The new City Hall, the annex. Right. I remember that.
Hosted by the city of Burleson. Y'all put everything together. I think you gave everybody bottled water and let us use your facility. Your staff was there. That's wonderful. We want people in and around Burleson to feel like they have an opportunity to participate, not just not everything being based in Cleburne. I'm from Cleburne, but I recognize that Johnson County is more than just one city. It's all of us together. The second public meeting that we hosted was hosted by the city of Alvarado in much the same way. We wanted to catch that side of the county. There will be one more public meeting toward the end of the process. We're probably going to host that in Cleburne. So we kind of hit three different sections of the county and give everybody an opportunity to be heard as we're making this.
Yeah. And you'll have an online too, where you can send in comments and stuff of
Yes.
that nature too. This is not just, it's reaching out to everybody.
Yes, we had an online survey that was published on our social media and on our website, and yes, we're looking for input. We don't, again, none of us want to spend money and go out and get a master plan that's this pretty document that sits on a shelf and we forget about or we refer to it every once in a while. We want something that we can take action on.
So you brought up a good point, and I've been hit up. You know, why you're the mayor of Burleson? Why are you messing with this? Okay, why you care about Cleburne and Joshua and Godly? It's the right thing to do. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to look at the selfish side of it, I'll tell you a story. I was speaking to a breakfast meeting, okay, and a good friend of mine comes in late. And he starts rattling on me about, you know, I was late because of your roads. And I said, well, if you'd have stayed in Cleburne, I wouldn't have a problem with my roads. You know, we are the gateway to Johnson County, but also to Tarrant. And Burleson has tremendous challenges. Okay. Your master plan shows us a little bit of a possibility of alleviating that some. You know, I'm on the NTTA. We got 2 lanes coming on the toll road. We're connecting between 174 and the toll road, a thoroughfare that could handle that. We're trying to get the TxDOT to step up and get that done. I'm doing it for other towns to help Burleson. I mean, it's that simple.
We all share success. And let me say, I have 2 comments in response to that, because you're absolutely right, Mayor. I completely agree with you. The first is, if you look at our history of how Johnson County came to be, how the towns were laid out the way they were, we're absolutely a product of our agricultural past. And the cities are spaced according to having a rest stop for your cattle as you're moving them up the Chisholm Trail every day. So you can move your cattle between one city to the next, and there's an encampment. There's where you keep your cowboys and your cattle. And that's why, and that's a wonderful thing. Johnson County has, every city has a slightly different flavor. You come to Burleson and you know you're in Burleson. You go to Cleburne and you know you were not in Burleson, but they complement each other. And
Cleburne's happy about that too.
and so is Burleson. It's just a slightly different flavor. You go to Grandview and it's a slower pace of life. It's more agricultural, and that's a wonderful thing. I don't think any of the cities, I've used the phrase sibling rivalry. I don't think we need sibling rivalry. We need to understand that we serve slightly different purposes. That's why we have cities. It's not one size fits all. It's we all get to have a say in what we do locally. The result of that is it can be a little more complicated to work together, but we share so many of the same goals. None of us want to fight with traffic congestion. We all understand that, especially before the Chisholm Trail Parkway was here, that we were going to go through Burleson. We were going to go through Burleson traffic because we were going to be a part of Burleson traffic if we wanted to be in the Metroplex. Alvarado deals with the same issue, funneling I-35 and 67. If you want to go to Dallas or Fort Worth, they handle a tremendous amount of traffic. That's not their local drivers. It's not Alvarado drivers causing the traffic problems in Alvarado. It's moving people from one place to another across the county. And so it does make it a regional problem for which we need a regional solution.
I agree. And here's the boom on this. You know, we've got the trade school. That's $150 million build out. That'll be their corporate offices. They're expecting 5,000 students a year to go through that facility. That's a lot of cars. Then I've been working with Betsy Price on the Texas A&M project in downtown Fort Worth. Our toll road goes from there all the way down to Cleburne. Well, that's Joshua on the way. And that also peels off towards Godly.
It does. And once you hit the 67 loop, it continues all the way to Glen Rose.
I know.
And that area is starting to develop. People are recognizing that you can have a nice rural lifestyle. You can buy your ranchette and your nice house and be in driving distance of Fort Worth, even at the edge of Johnson County. And we're seeing development.
I know. Yeah, I mean, we've got a good layout. And then I want to touch on something else here. The master plan, lost my train of thought for a second. The master plan is just the start of something bigger. Okay. And the reason I do that, and I want to bring up the fact of what Victor Vandergriff and Oscar Trevino from North Richland Hills has brought to this table, in the fact that they've lived through it. Victor's dad was Tom Vandergriff, the mayor of Arlington, that he was part of the I-30 toll road, that they got that built, stories about that, how it happened, how it was approved. Victor was around all of that stuff. And that's been his life this whole time. He knows all these people. He knows how to do this. Well, there was a situation where some funding was taken away from a large sector, and it kind of cut that sector down. And Victor called me up and said, I need you to go to Parker County and sit in on one of these meetings. And that was the master plan. It was the creation of a bond package, cost-effective bond package, but also the ability to get matching federal funds.
Yes, and that's a huge deal, and it's a conversation I think we have to have. We all want everybody to play a part in this conversation.
Freeze Nichols is big. They've done it. They've done it over and over, and they're leading the charge for us.
They've given a preliminary conversation or presentation to the Commissioner's Court just in the last month about what it would look like. What if Johnson County wants to invest in its road network in a way that it never has before? There are obvious pros and cons of that. The cons are, if you talk about a bond, you talk about property taxes, and that's complicated. People are struggling. I know I got my appraisal, and I've been capped out for the last couple of years, 10% every year, because it's my homestead, and I will expect my bill to go up every year. That's complicated. It can threaten long-term homeowners. It can cause businesses to struggle. The other side of it is congestion also threatens our way of life, and it threatens our businesses. If you can't get to a business, you're not going to go there and shop. And
there's a mental aspect to this thing too. We see people running red lights, going speeding, getting upset, mad. And I understand that it's congested.
Yes.
Morning and afternoon is awful.
When it takes twice as long to get where you're going as you thought it should have, you get mad, and then you drive a little less cautiously. And we see my office has windows that face out at the courthouse square, downtown Cleburne. And just yesterday I heard a crash and looked out, and sure enough, two folks had turned on top of each other because they were trying to go the same place at the same time. It's not uncommon. And so we do have to find a way to address that. The interesting thing, you talked about federal matching dollars.
Yes.
If we did decide to move forward, if that's what the community wanted, that we were going to invest in our roadway network, we were going to borrow some money to do it. If we were to make a $30 or $40 million investment into TxDOT roads, we could accelerate the development of those roads by sometimes 10 years or more. So we're going to get things on the ground that we otherwise may never have benefited from. And we're likely to see a match somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 or 10 to 1. So $40 million of local dollars could translate to as much as $400 million of total investment in our road network.
And here's something else about the matching funds. It's not just about new roads.
Correct.
It's also about upgrading what we've already got, which could get a lot of these towns out of hock on what we've got. Last year, we didn't budget enough money because we didn't know what was happening. We had very, very hot weather for a long time that dried up everything under our roads, dried up around our water lines. Then it rains, and then it freezes. So we didn't budget enough money in, and we're having to deal with that right now.
And that's another fantastic point, that we talk about matching dollars, and that's why you focus on TxDOT projects, because then TxDOT and the federal government pick up the lion's share of the tab. But they also pick up maintenance in perpetuity, forever. So
yes,
we wherever the money comes from, we spend $10 million on county roads and build new county roads. That's great. We're going to have to do it every 10 years from now on to keep them in good condition. You spend $10 million on a TxDOT road, you might get a $100 million road as a result that TxDOT's going to take care of for as long as Texas is a state. It means we're not adding anything to the ongoing maintenance and operations for cities or the county. And that's a real win for taxpayers.
And TxDOT looks for a regional project.
Yes.
Anytime they have a choice between a regional project and a town project, they're going to go the regional. And the other thing that I've learned from the Parker County is what is shovel ready. I was taught that it was just the engineering. Parker County has jumped ahead of us on projects because they do the engineering, they buy the right of ways, they do their EPA study, and they also move the utilities that are in the way. of which all of these are reimbursed by TxDOT when they come and start. So it's not something that we might have to put the money up front, but we're going to get our money back when it starts, and we're getting our roads done quicker. There is so many things that this is going to help. And Parker County is showing, and I'm not sure the size of Parker County. I think we're about the same size. They might be a little bit bigger.
We're close on population. I can tell you the size of their roadway project is 3 or 4 times what we would consider doing.
Absolutely, because of 20 and all the
yes,
they're getting. When I went to the meeting several months ago, they were getting 22 families a day, and they've got massive high-speed transportation situations.
So I know we're somewhat limited on time. There are 2 things I want to talk about, and you just mentioned one of them, and that's population growth. I just met with our elections administrator 2 weeks ago, and we looked at the number of registered voters in the county. And if you go back to about 2019, there were 100,000 registered voters. So 100 at that same time, about 180,000 residents, 100,000 registered voters. Since that time, we have grown like clockwork, about 5,000 voters a year, which means now we are probably 25% of our voters are either they newly aged in or they moved here in the last 5 years. So think of, to put that in context, think of whenever COVID started, 25% of our people are new folks in Johnson County since that time. You drive down this road, 1 out of every 4 cars is driven by somebody that was either too young or lived somewhere else prior to then. And that is hard to wrap your head around.
I know. We got 193,000 people, and the state said in the next 10 years we'll have 393,000 people.
I believe it. We're just from the census to today, the census number was 179,000 in 2020. Our estimate is they bounce around 200,000 people now. So that's 20,000 people in less than 4 years. And frankly, I think we're growing a lot faster than that. I think the numbers are going to bear out that, and it's accelerating. It was not a flash in the pan, and it wasn't one event that caused us to grow. It is continuing to grow. New rooftops, whether those be single family or apartments, they're all over the place. And one thing I've said since my days back on city council prior to running for my current job is growth is coming here, whether we like it or not.
We can't stop it.
It's incumbent on us to take the bull by the horns.
Yeah, we have gotten rid of most of our multifamily zonings that were out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a few, but they were in the wrong place to start with. We purchased 2 parcels of land that was multifamily, and basically because there was no fix. If any way we did the engineering, we were either dumping it on 174 or onto John Jones. We couldn't fix it. So that was a good purchase on that. But we got our hands full. But we have Vandergriff, who has lived through this.
Mm-hmm.
That's our ace in the hole right there. We got people that understanding the possibilities. We're getting there. And
Absolutely.
we've now with Bailey, and if we get another backup for him, if that goes okay, we'll have 2 people in Austin fighting for our numbers. That's a big deal.
I believe that. I know we have, as we grow, regional is going to be the answer to a lot of our problems. We have to work cooperatively within the county, around the county, and with Austin to move any project forward. You mentioned, again, population growth, and I think we're going to see population continue to grow. One thing that I think local government has a history of saying is, well, we want the growth to pay for itself. And I want to point out that this year, we're actually at Johnson County, the tax rate, we were able to do some impressive things. I want to brag a little bit about the team that we have and the work that was done. But last budget year, we went through a pretty complicated budget process. We went line by line through the budget. We allocated money to projects that were important. And at the end of the day, the state of Texas has a truth in taxation form that you fill out. Every local government fills out. And on one sheet of paper, it distills all the work you did for a year. And you can use that to grade your entity. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But on that sheet, last year, we got to tell everybody that our budget, our total expenditures increased by about $4 million. And of that, $5 million was from new construction. And what that means is all the new things built in 1 year in Johnson County generated $5 million of revenue and tax revenue. We took $1 million and gave it back to existing taxpayers as an actual real tax cut. So as a total, existing taxpayers paid less in tax year over year to the county. And then we took the other $4 million to invest in our operations. And one of our biggest accomplishments, we were able to institute a step pay plan for our law enforcement, where we really created a career path. If you want to be a Johnson County deputy, we're in a position for the first time in our history where we can hire an 18-year-old as a jailer. You can start out making about $50,000 a year working in the jail. If you prove yourself to be good at what you're doing and you're interested in being in Johnson County, then we can help you become a deputy. You're going to start at about $60,000, and then you will top out. Even if you never make rank, you never want to supervise another person, you want to drive around in a patrol car for 20 years, you're going to top out close to $90,000 a year. So we've created a career path to take local grown high school talent and turn them into lifers at Johnson County. And we would love the opportunity to do that.
That's cool. That's really great. Now I want to touch base on something else. We talk about the COG and how important that is to where our roads get built. Now, luckily, we've already got Victoria Johnson on there. Went into the general population with thanks to past presidents of the COG. We got her on the executive board, secretary treasurer. We have an opportunity to get you on the executive board. And that's what we're working on right now. We have had a ton of recommendation letters come in to our city manager here. We're going to package that up and send it in. I just got Victor Vandergrift called me this morning. He's going to send his letter in.
Wonderful.
And Oscar Trevino is going to send it in. I'm going to let a couple other people know. I really feel good at the fact that we're going to fill that position of a county for our cluster or our county of that size.
Yes.
So we'll have two people fighting for us on the COG to get our roads.
Yes. And we appreciate Ellis County Judge Little served on that committee for his full term, and he is termed off. So this is an open seat, and the timing is perfect. Johnson County is growing like wildfire. We need representation at the COG. We're so lucky to have Victoria there. She does a wonderful job representing the interest of not just Burleson, but Johnson County. But a second voice on that committee, I think, is going to pay dividends for the taxpayers of Johnson County.
Cool. You're pretty good at this. You know that? I guess you talk in front of juries and all that other stuff. You get used to it.
Oh, I don't know. You're so personable, Mayor. I could just sit here and chat with you all day.
It was fun. Well, that's kind of winding up the show here. Next week, we're going to have Helen Kerwin on here. Talk about her life, where she lived, her plans, throw maybe a few hard questions at her. But this has been fun. Everybody, appreciate you listening to us. And I got 39 seconds to what do we got to talk about? Anybody you don't like, you want to say something about?
No, not in 30 seconds. Hey, I'll leave you with this. I came across a quote the other day, Helen Keller. She says, "Alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much." I think that is where we are as Johnson County, that we can accomplish a lot of things if we will work
You
together.
need to go get that tattooed across your chest. You know that?
Who says I don't have it already?
Okay. We still got 10 seconds. I've never had that problem before in my life. I want to tell everybody how much I appreciate everybody, your listeners, all of the mayors, commissioners, you, Judge, and how everybody's jumped in to do this right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Yeah, nowhere but Texas.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
School choice. Sweet-sounding words from sweet-sounding groups like the American Federation for Children. Well, the truth is alarming. These are the people caught marketing private school vouchers to illegal immigrants in Arizona. And they want to do the same in Texas. But Dwayne Burns said no. And that's why they're targeting him in this election. The voucher program they're pushing is a magnet for illegal immigration. Fully qualified to receive these $10,000 vouchers, illegal aliens would go to the front of the line ahead of U.S. citizens. These groups want to replace Dwayne Burns with a rubber stamp, and they've got one in Helen Kerwin. Kerwin has pledged to support this voucher scheme if elected, but we can't let that happen. Dwayne Burns' top priority is border security. He's stopped taxpayer-funded handouts to illegal aliens, and he's endorsed by every law enforcement association in Texas. Political ad paid for by the